smothers the insect, and the bigger an insect is, the less prone to smothering it is. So mites and the really tiny insects, that's a good way of killing them. But if it's something like a ladybird or something, it's just a sticky shower that goes on their back. So big moths and things like that, neem's not really going to touch them. So if your population is low enough, you can defer them to your neighbours to create someone else's problem. And that solves your problem for a while. But if you're using neem, you tend to need to use neem a lot, like every 7 to 10 days, because the effect of it just wears off. Yeah, so it breaks down. It is a good tool. It is used quite extensively in commercial, conventional growing crops for that reason, before pests arrive, to try and keep them off for as long as you can. But once the pest is there, it's a different approach. So, yeah.
Do you know anything about the insects that eat Stratoscanthia, the wandering Jew? You had any experience with
No,
that?
so we would love to get into weed biocontrol. Auckland Council doesn't want us to propagate weeds that we need to breed the beneficials. So if anyone likes to complain to Auckland Council on our behalf, please do. Please loudly. Yeah.
It's labour intensive.
Can I ask, it's getting away from the food we eat, but we've got this problem now with Pūtikawa and other varieties close to that, which is supposed to have come from the Pacific. Is it in this field, the cause of the disease and what's spoiling all the leaves? And is there, I think there's research going on, I understood, but is there anything you can just give a quick look at what it is? Is it your field, or is it going to be dealt with another way?
So when it comes to any new pathogens that arrive in New Zealand, such as myrtle rust, which goes after Pūtikawa trees and feijoas, anything that's new, MPI likes to ring fence and do themselves. Commercial organisations like us don't get a look in. The first point of call is, how do we eradicate this? How do we use the worst substances known to man to hopefully kill this, and hope that this is being contained in the spread. Then once the inevitable happens and it moves out around the lands, I'm not sure if anyone here would have heard of Scion, forestry research. They tend to look at these things. They're looking at like kauri dieback and all that. They have extensive projects, government funded, into planting native forests and all sorts of tree-based research. From there, companies like us and some of the other microbial companies might either get asked a question depending on who we know there, or if they've developed a product for it, they will say, do you want to produce this for this market? Sometimes they'll give it to these companies for free. Sometimes they'll say, oh, you need to license this for a whole lot of money from us, which seems to be more the path they're heading down now. In the past, they were a bit nicer about these things. Until 2 weeks ago, I would have said myrtle rust I have no answer for.
You mentioned for rust, the time bacteria before.
For myrtle rust. So so until 2 weeks ago, I had no answer for it. Absolutely none. As of 13 days ago, I do have some prospects for it. So there is a solution that has been developed. It is not organic chemistry, it's actually inorganic chemistry. It is, because it's a substance which is found in the human body and in nature, then it is actually be able to get organic certification. So the company that produces this has already got BioGrow and Assure Quality certification. They've done a little bit of research in it 1 or 2 years ago, and for whatever happened with their researcher, he parted ways with their project and left them sitting there with a product and no information. But now we'll be sort of picking up the pieces with that and trying to help them carry it forward. We're actually doing a trial with it on tomatoes tomorrow. It is a
Who's
Yeah.
on rest on tomatoes?
no, against it. This product on a different application. It seems to have potential for widespread use in horticulture without leaving any nasty residues on plants. And it is using the exact same method our white blood cells use to kill pathogens in our bodies. The substance is actually already used in hospitals.
Is
So
it
this
top
is-
secret?
Not really, but
$50
it's
a litre.
after seeing how it operates, it was already a 3-hour explanation. So to sum it up, it's a general purpose biocide that is found in our bodies. It's used in surgeries as a sterilant. This company wanted to get into the horticultural space, and we were connected through a mutual party. The only issue with it is they want to use it everywhere in horticulture, but it is non-selective. It will kill all the good trichoderma, it will kill all the good bacteria, so we have to rein them in a little bit and say, no, you're good for this and that, but don't go tipping it down the roots of trees unless that tree is dying and it needs resuscitating. But yeah, there's
So you ought to rein them in a little.
yeah.
It's common sense.
Yeah, it is common sense, yeah. They look at it from the point of view that, we should be able to sell all this product for all these miracle applications, and we're going, no, we want microbes in the soil, and we actually want some on the plant too, so we don't want to always use this product, but when we have to, it's a good option. It's just an extremely strong option, so we need to modulate how we do this. Although it poses no risk for human health or nutrition, if you went solely down that path, you would be yield limiting, and that's, yeah,
Moderation and also.
yeah, exactly, so,
That scion, I don't they use that CRISPR? I don't fully understand it in leading into the GMO side of things.
yes, so, CRISPR is a little bit of a hot topic at the moment where they refer to it as gene editing,
Yeah.
but it is not genetic modification, it's genetic
I
selecting. Yeah, it's very toyana. New Zealand has been very anti-GMO, and I think that's probably the best way to go, because the more cases I read of GMO plants being developed, there was a recent case that they did a study on GMO cotton from Monsanto in Africa. So cotton has cotton bollworm caterpillar, one of the most destructive pests on earth. Because it lives inside the plant, it's very hard to spray and kill. So it's right up there on the insecticide resistance list. So Monsanto, being the nice company they are, developed
They're wonderful.
a GMO cotton tree, and they went out and they told all these farmers, it produces this much cotton, you don't need to spray, great, you're going to make all this money. 10, 20 years later they went back and they did the research and they said, why have so many cotton farmers gone bankrupt? And bankrupt, yeah. And then they were like, well, why are these trees not producing that much cotton? You said they were going to produce this much cotton. Can you please show us your data from your field trials that showed these trees produced that much cotton in this kind of environment? And they said, we don't have that data. We just said they would.
Yeah, like
It was an
hormone
unfortunate rejection.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So,
So it
Yeah.
goes back to the Lorax and the Dr. Zeus
Yeah.
and the puppy ball trees.
exactly.
Here's the last seed in the world.
So for a lot of these cotton growers that had been looking at actually organic methods of controlling cotton bollworm and a conventional and historical variety of cotton, we're actually doing better because like there's caterpillar viruses that you can spread onto the plant and then it will drop the population. There's things like bacterias, like you can get at Bunnings, your bug curs and bactar and dipel. All these things will help control caterpillars, although they have to ingest it. They're only going to eat one cotton ball and then die instead of the whole tree. So these farmers were actually still doing well. Yeah. And this is why we're all trying to go down this path of improving biology. We've had decades of chemical research, and that was fantastic. We were able to buy poison in a bottle. How great was life? Now we can buy spiders in a bottle, so life's getting more interesting.
Adrian, there's some researcher has actually put out information about myrtle rust depending on when you prune the tree. So I think it's one of the land care people. So if you Google pruning trees prevent myrtle rust, I think he said during the winter, so it starts growing before it gets too warm for the rust.
It's soft new growth.
Yeah, it's a soft growth that is very susceptible.
So you don't want new
Yes.
growth coming through it during the heat.
I can't remember what website it is, but I did find it on the internet. I think it was one of the land care one. And it said pruning at a certain time, you're less likely to get myrtle rust.
It might be plant and foods.
Could be plant
But
food.
if they'd done it from a feed-grower point of view, it would be likely plant and food. But if it was...
I don't think Fijoa is not considered susceptible to myrtle rust, possibly because I think myrtle rust comes from South America and
there's a few orchards up north that have already got it and haven't really had a solution to getting rid of it. Yeah. And Fijoas in New Zealand is an emerging export market. We have Fijoa customers, and lo and behold, his brother-in-law, so he grows Fijoas in Matamata, his brother-in-law is in Seattle, and last week he actually had his Fijoas in his local supermarket. So, they're getting out there, we're taking over the world again.
Yeah.
But you would think it was pretty slim pickings with the amount of flights those Fijoas would have had to have taken to get to Seattle. But we're getting it out there.
So just
things like Syzygium and Eugenia and Rosac are very susceptible to myrtle rust too, as well as some natives.
Get a question?
back to the myrtle rust control itself, is this being developed just for individual spread cases, or is it going to be used like on more kind of like open plain, like, is it just for infected cases and then that will kill it, or it will inhibit its growth and it'll die off over the next winter, or?
Okay, so the question was, would this product for myrtle rust be able to be used preventative as an inhibitor, or would it be used for control? With this product we found it has some inhibition period after it's used, but in general we like to take the approach of don't deal with something until it is there, because it might be 50 years before it comes onto your property, and if you've been spraying for it twice a year, you've done 100 things you didn't have to do.
Yeah.
And that balance that problem.
Yeah. But if you can catch things early, that's great. With some of these pathogens, that's easier said than done. But the more vigilant people are in their crops and the better scouting practices they have. And to be fair, with the more bacteria and life that they have there, they actually tend to be less likely to catch these things because something there will inhibit it naturally. If you try and keep it as a sterile environment, it has no competition.
Well, what can I do about green shields? Because that was a terrible problem for our kids.
So green shield bugs only have a parasitoid in New Zealand,
How
which
much is that?
it's not for sale. It was in
Real pain
1990.
to go around collecting them.
Yeah, shield bugs tend to not actually be much of a problem in
We have a
commercial horticulture, especially with my customers, because they lay their eggs in tight clusters. So if you catch them early, you just strip off the leaves on that plant and not have to worry about it. In say sweet corn or something like that, that's where they actually become more of a pest because you've got such a broad acreage of the same crop. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, they actually helicopter spray with OPs to deal with those. But I would say if you put some of these companion plants around your garden, there are some predators that will deal with them. You just need to get your, like lacewings will pick off the odd egg. There's a lot of things that if they're hungry enough, will have a go. There is a parasitoid, so if you plant plants like these, you do actually extend the life of parasitoids, which then helps with your efficiency over time. Something I actually forgot to touch on with that, with Steve Ratton and this companion planting. So most grapes in New Zealand are grown for producing wine rather than eating. They had a problem with leaf roller caterpillar devastating these crops. Grapes is actually one of probably the more eco-conscious crops, even when you consider from a conventional grower rather than organic growers point of view. So they said we have too much of a problem with this. They put in rows of these wildflowers, the 3 species mentioned, around about every 50 metres apart. There's vineyards in the South Island that are 90 plus hectares that for the last 10 years have not sprayed a single thing for caterpillars. So you just got to let nature do its job. Yeah. Yeah.
Get away from the monotony of the monoculture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diversity is sustainability.
Yeah. So if you can put some of these diverse plants in,
Those three.
let the parasitoids, let the predators be there on a bigger, grander scale, these things are easier to achieve. When you think about an urban environment, the more people we have on board, the more like a big diverse forest we are. If we've got someone spraying nasty things in his backyard that keeps taking things out, that then flares things up for your yard and stuff. But as we move forward, people become more conscious of these problems, then the better we're going to get as a society. So Rose Growers organisation is probably one that historically has been very, very bad at that because they spray their plants like there's no tomorrow. The aesthetics have to be amazing. They're known to take products from farms that have gone off-label and no longer registered and use them on their crops at home, in backyards, terrible products that have got 10 plus days of human re-entry time being sprayed across the fence from another family.
Dead babies everywhere.
They've now taken the approach of coming up with an agreement with us to help make their whole society more eco-conscious. So we are now being involved in their workshops on how to reduce your pests organically and how to reduce your fungi organically instead of spraying broad spectrum fungicides all the time, because these are no good for human health and no good for your neighbour's health. And if you don't need to spray them to produce a good rose. So we thought there was going to be a lot more pushback from the older members that have always done it this way. There was a pushback for about a day. And then they were like, yeah, no, we've been thinking about that anyway. And actually, it's starting to become more of a thing, which is quite good given they have over 5,000 members nationally. Yeah. And the next stage of my plan, which I haven't told them, is to sign them all up for ag recovery, which takes pesticides from people's homes and disposes of them properly. So I'd imagine everyone in this room does not have a bottle of poison sitting in their home.
Except me.
But, oh, okay, maybe you.
My dad brought it round and I don't know what to do with it. It still
Okay.
sits there.
Cool, ag recovery. So ag recovery runs a program where they work right across New Zealand to take back empty containers and full containers of pesticides, no matter what it is. And then the earlier you contact them, the more they will lobby your local council to make it free for you to give in this pesticide, because there's a real, getting rid of these things isn't free. Someone needs to pay. Ag recovery.
And is the council not already collecting?
So, no, the council does not
I thought they did collect things you wanted to return that were dangerous.
No,
And they don't then link with ag recovery.
no. So ag recovery, like the worse it is, the more ag recovery will push, because they don't want it in someone's garage. One of my neighbours used to be a market gardener down in Levin, and he eventually came to me a month ago and he's like, I've got some things in my garage that I really want to get rid of. I thought they were going to be useful, some herbicides and stuff like that. Where can I get rid of them? So we're now signing him up for ag recovery. He's got something called diquat, if anyone knows what that is. But he said back when he was growing, he sprayed out his field, killed all the weeds, and you always end up with a little bit left that no one really knows what to do with. So he thought he would be smart and put it on the road. And for the first week, he was like, haha, no one's noticed, I've gotten away. Second week, haha, I'm in the clear.